Welcome to the Social for Brokers podcast. Today, I have Thomas on the podcast from his own mortgage brokerage. So Tom has been giving mortgage advice for about 14 years now, so he's well versed in it, and decided to start his own brokerage in July of 2019. The reason I wanted to get Tom on the podcast was to speak to him about obviously the success of his business, how he's done it, but also how he does something that I've never seen a mortgage broker do before from the people that I've spoken to, which is doing live events in his local area. So we'll talk through it. Actually, I'm not going to give it away as to what he did. We'll speak to Tom about that. It's something I haven't seen done before, and it definitely works because he had a lot of interest in it. But before we get into it, I actually need to welcome him on. So Tom, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and welcome.
Thank you, Chris. No, thanks for having me.
Did I get all that right?
Yeah, all spot on, mate. Thank you.
So you were saying, before we get into it, you were saying that you're a mortgage broker for like around about 8-9 years, but you've been qualified to do the mortgage advice for about 14 because you were at a bank before, were you?
Yeah. So like lots of other brokers, my career started back in a building society. So I sort of went in at entry level, sort of counter job, and then sort of worked my way through that. And I was working my way up to branch manager, and one of those responsibilities was to supervise mortgage advisors. And to do that, we needed to obtain the CMAP qualification. So then I also started giving advice in the branches as well. So yeah, it seems like quite a while ago now, but that's how it all started.
So you were, I had a little look on LinkedIn. You used to work at Reebok, didn't you?
I did, mate. Yeah, I was selling 2 pairs of Reebok Classics for 25 quid.
Really?
Yeah.
Cost of living's gone up.
I know, mate. You wouldn't get them now, but yeah, they seem to have come back around. Back then, they're really popular, and then they sort of went out of fashion, and now you spot the odd pair of Reebok Classics down the high street again. They seem to sort of come back into fashion. But yeah, started in retail as a sort of a Saturday kid, and ended up actually going full time there before I moved into financial services. But it was a great job as a youngster. I had lots of good memories there.
It's funny, I went to see Jerry Cinnamon at the weekend, and the amount of old school clothing and stuff that was about, there was feeler tops, there were Alessi, or is it Elise?
I think I go Alessi, Elise, same thing.
Yeah. So there was loads of that stuff about Reebok Classics. Obviously, you could feature. Reebok did the was it the Back to the Future shoe?
Yeah, they did all sorts, mate. And then they got signed up with all the different rappers, and it was quite big at one point. So yeah, it was good. But like I said, they ended up getting bought out by Adidas, and they sort of lost their kind of own trademark sort of. The classic went a bit out of fashion, but it's like I say, it seems to have come back around again now.
Come back around. Anyway, we'll go off trainers. We're here to talk about mortgage business. So you were in the bank. That's how you started. Where did you go from the bank? Talk us through a bit of a background of how you are, or how you've got to where you are today.
Yeah, so was in the building society. That's where I got my CMAP qualification, and then I was a branch manager, part of a branch manager network, and a few of the branch managers were starting to leave the society because it was sort of coming out the back end of the banking crisis where mortgages were opening back up again, lenders were wanting to lend, but there was a real shortage of mortgage brokers. So, people could earn fairly good money because there's a shortage. And all these branch managers that hadn't perhaps been given whole of market mortgage advice, but tied advice, figured out that they could actually earn a fairly good wage doing that. So a few of them were moving across, and, all of a sudden, there's a bit of a cull of branch managers all leaving to give mortgage advice in the space of sort of 12 months. There was sort of 5 or 10 of us out of quite a small group that all left. So I went across, actually originally started working for a specialist broker, Build Store, who specialise in advice for self-build mortgages and financing projects. So it's a bit of a strange move looking back on it, because normally, you'd perhaps do the vanilla stuff first. That was relatively straightforward, but I kind of didn't really know what I was doing at the time and just threw myself straight into the complex stuff. So it took a little while to get my head around it, but it was really, really interesting, doing a lot of finance for like grand design style projects and
nice.
Really quirky stuff. So that was really interesting. And I was there for 3 years. And then that was a national firm. The head office was based in Livingston near Edinburgh, but I was based remotely where I am, working from home. And then a firm near me were advertising for kind of a head of sales, a head of mortgage role locally, a sort of small firm, but a relatively big name locally. And I moved across there after 3 years. And again, started sort of managing a very small team and also giving some mortgage advice on more sort of vanilla stuff rather than the complex stuff. It's a sort of more of a traditional whole of market mortgage brokerage.
And then you set up on your own.
Yeah, and then thereafter I had a bit of a falling out there, and sort of ended up out of my arse a bit, and not really two pennies to rub together, and had to do something quite quick. So just I was out there on the end of May, and then my brokerage launched on the 12th of July, pretty much from a standing start. And here we are now, kind of nearly 3 years on, and it's the best decision I ever made.
Yeah, and this is what I want people to understand, because I get some people that say my goal was always to own my own mortgage brokerage. This was my plan. I was going to work for this company, leave, set up on my own, and have this team of 10 people within 5 years. What you can see from it, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Tom, it probably wasn't in your plans to set up on your own. And I think you used the perfect phrase there. I was a bit out of my arse. And the thing is, I suppose you just had a light bulb moment and went, well, let's try it on my own. And if worst case, you can always go back to somewhere else, can't you? And it's not for everyone.
Yeah, and to be honest, I completely get people that feel that way, and I honestly don't know whether I ever would have took that leap if I wasn't pushed into doing it. Because to be honest, my back was against the wall. I was out, like I say, out of my arse. I know I was good at giving mortgage advice, or I felt I was good at giving mortgage advice. Seen how a successful mortgage brokerage could run, so I had all the relevant experience to be able to do it, and needed to earn some money quite quickly. So I kind of just did what I thought was right at that point to get some money, through the door, so I could pay the bills and look after my family. Had I not been in that sort of situation, I don't know if I ever would have took the leap, because I understand it is quite overwhelming and quite stressful, and but looking back, if I could have the word with myself, I would have probably done it sooner. It's the best thing I ever did. And I've spoken to a lot of brokers over the years, and that's my advice I always give to them, is that speak to me in 12 months, and I can guarantee you'll thank me that it's the best thing you did. It tends not to be quite as scary as you think it's going to be. But yeah, like I said, would I ever have done it? I don't know, but like I say, it was definitely the best thing I did.
It kind of put you in an uncomfortable position, which then meant that you had to do it. Similar to like Matt Poole. Have you spoken to Matt before?
Yeah, I know Matt. Yeah,
and he was like, he turned around to his missus, and she said, "Look, you've always wanted to do it. Let's just do it." And kind of there's a saying about coming out of adversity. The best things come out of adversity. That's it. You were fighting for your money, because, as you said, you didn't have a wage coming in. What would you say for anybody thinking of setting up on their own? What would you say the biggest struggles are for setting up?
I think it's just spinning all the plates. When you're in an established brokerage or a big national brokerage, or they've got everything set up. They've got the accountant in place. They've got their their Facebook pages set up. They've got the website set up. They know how to pay the wages and all these different things. It's just things that you probably wouldn't think of, smaller things, but they become your problems, and they become sort of real issues. So spinning all those plates, you are you're the income generator, you're the marketer, you are the accountant, all the bookkeeper, you're all of these things initially. So there are lots of things to consider there, but again, it isn't as perhaps as daunting as it first seems. That you write all these things out, it's quite a long list of things you've got to get your head around and get set up. But if you just tick them off one by one, they're really not as bad as you think. And I kicked off my business with a free Wix website, which was, looking back on it, pretty horrific, but it did the job. I had a website, I had my contact name on there, you could book an appointment on there, said a little bit about me. It did the job for then. And since I've upgraded, before I was answering my phone all the time, and evenings and weekends and bank holidays, and now I've got a call answering service. So I think it's, don't worry about trying to get it perfect, get it done, and you can improve it later on, would be my advice.
That's probably a really good bit of advice, and I've done it with products that I'm looking to launch. I'm looking for perfection before I launch them. Whereas actually get them out there, get the feedback. Like you say, you could do the best website possible and spend thousands on it. And then somebody turns around and goes, well, actually, I don't use a mortgage calculator. And you could have gone, well, that would have saved me 800 quid that I could have used for advertising. Do you know what I mean? And don't wait for perfection, just try it. What I was going to say is you had a lot of stuff that you needed to do, set up the Facebook page, set up your website, run the accounts. Did you find that kind of taking a day out of the week for all those jobs, or do you have to fit them in between doing your mortgage advice?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, for me, I did have that gap between where I was kind of pushed out of my last business at the end of May. You can't, even more so now, there is a lead time to getting set up. I'm under an appointed representative with HR partnership. So, it takes them time to do their checks and get you authorized with the FCA. And, don't get me wrong, I was on them every single day because every day I was, waiting, I was missing out on money. Yeah. But, they did it really quickly, to be fair to them. And I know the wait times are a lot longer now because of COVID, but I kind of had that time to get all those things set up, your business card, your website, all those different things. So, thankfully they were pretty much ready when the business launched. But yeah, I guess for somebody else that's perhaps, finishing one role, starting another, I guess it's just a case of just, don't get too overwhelmed by doing it all at once. Just, just focus on getting one sorted at a time, allocating some time in the evening or a day a week to get it done. That's what I've done moving forward when we're upgrading the website and when we're, changing the marketing strategy, whatever it might be, is, just do it in bite-sized chunks, spend, a morning a week focusing on the task, and, before you know it, it'll be done.
Good tip. Splitting it amongst the week rather than doing them all on one day. Good tip. So yeah. You launched the business. It's gone from strength to strength. You've got lots of leads coming in. I don't think you necessarily needed to do this local event because for me, you had a very viable business, but doing this local event, and I'm going to get you to run us through exactly what it was, sets you apart from any other mortgage broker. So first, tell us what this event is, what happened, what you did, and two, how it's benefited your business.
Yeah, sure. So in September 2021, we ran a free first-time buyer event. So in my local area, which is Brackley, South Northamptonshire, we put out, I think initially it was 75 free tickets, but we ended up upping that to 85. Knowing that when you do something for free, not everyone's going to turn up because they haven't got the commitment. So we put out sort of 75, 85 tickets with the hope of getting 40 to 50 people. We ended up with 60 on the day, or just shy of 60, which was
sorry to stop you. That's incredible. You should be so proud of that. To give out 85 tickets and have 60 of those people turn up, because you say like a free event, people think, I won't worry about it, but 60 people, that's phenomenal. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you. Yeah, and we normally expected sort of perhaps up to a 50% drop off. So we were expecting sort of 40. We ended up with more, which was brilliant. It was the hottest day of the year, so getting 60 people crammed into the town hall was a bit snug, and quite warm. But yeah, it was a good day. So we basically, the way we worked was there was a number of mini sessions or seminars that we put together. So I did the mortgage related ones. So again, it was all geared around first time buyers. So it was fairly, beginner stuff. Things like, kind of a quick overview of the different types of mortgage products, what you need to do first of all to kind of get yourselves mortgage ready, and understanding your budget, speaking to a mortgage broker, getting your credit reports, those sorts of things. We invited along local solicitors, so sort of well-known, reputable local solicitors who did a session on the conveyancing process of what happens when you buy a house. We also had a local independent estate agent come along and give tips on things to look at when you're doing a viewing, and other kind of first-time buyers tips of things they should be thinking about essentially when going to view a property, and the right questions to be asking, and those sorts of things. So we did that. It was about an hour or so in terms of all the different seminars. We had a Q&A session. We put on Prosecco and brownies and tea and coffees and that sort of stuff. And then we had some other, aside from the people that were speaking, who were also attending as sort of exhibitors, we had a few other exhibitors at the back of the room as well. So there was like another estate agency attended with the solicitor firm, like I said, and they all had their sort of banners at the back, giving away freebies, this sort of marketing stuff. And They've given out business cards and things like that. So it was really, really well received. It's a bit of a tongue twizzler. And yeah, it was just really good. And it was good to obviously, for me, from giving back to the local people, a free event was fantastic. Of course, it was good for me from a marketing perspective because a room of 60 people all watching me talk, I got a chance to build rapport with them and give them advice and, potential future clients. Of course, we use socials to push the event out, which was good. People were taking photos, sharing them out on social media. People were sharing stuff. So, from a marketing perspective, it was great as well. And like I said, because that was September, now we're in June at the time of recording, so 9 months, and we've had quite a lot of business on the back of that. So the event itself has been more than self-financing. So we are doing another one this year, which we're hopefully going to release the dates for that fairly soon.
Where did you? There's loads of questions I want to ask about this, but I'm just going to ask a few. Where did you get the idea from on that one?
So I used to attend Help to Buy events. So Help to Buy, the local agents that kind of look after the shared ownership and the equity loan, they run a series of events kind of nationally, free events, and on a bigger scale. But it all sort of stemmed from there, really, in terms of you could see how it worked. It was going to be a slightly different spin on it. But yeah, it sort of all stemmed from there. I thought, well, actually, we could do that on a local level, get all local people involved rather than being sort of nationally or a bigger county area like they do. And yeah, it just worked really well.
So I love the concept of it, that everyone's in the room, and as you said, you've got it from an idea from a bigger company that do it, and you've got your 60 people. They're all local people. They get to know who you are. They get to know the local solicitors. Why didn't you do it online?
To be honest, it's a really good, better question. Is that at that time, we hadn't long been out of lockdown, so there was still some COVID provisions in place and things like that. So we had to be quite careful on it to make sure we sort of met the regulations at that point. But for me, I think just seeing people in person, the whites that there are, I mean, you do online as well, but I think just having that interaction, and at the end of the event, people were coming up to me and was having a chat, and I think you can't beat that face-to-face interaction from an event perspective.
That's what I was going to say. I asked that question as somebody that runs like an online business, but for me, I would much rather attend an event like that, either host one or attend one, because, and the reason I say that is I've got a photo in my mind of when you did that event. You shared somebody's Instagram story photo, which was you after the event with like a glass of something, chatting away to a first-time buyer.
Yeah, that
doesn't happen online. It needs to be in person. And they could come up to you and just say, "Oh, look, great event," and you could just say one thing that resonates with them and their values, that they turn around and go, "I'm not using any other mortgage broker. I'm not letting my family use any other mortgage broker. This guy is exactly who I want to deal with." Yeah. Online, that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
and it's just that one conversation that can spark so much more business.
Yeah, I agree. And and to be honest, it's we don't actually do a whole load of face-to-face appointments. A lot of our stuff is telephone based, but I think from the event perspective, the impact it has face-to-face and actually meeting people, particularly after being locked up for a while as well. And obviously we had some great photo opportunities, which again was good for marketing to push out. And then people were sharing all the photos on social media. So for me, that's the way to do it. I think online events are good. An online event is better than no event. But for me personally, I sort of the face-to-face events is the way to go.
And doing that local event, I think we get, if you're running a mortgage brokerage, and I'm not a mortgage broker, but you could sit there and go, I've got the whole of the UK to go at. I could target the whole of the UK. There's so much business out there. Or you could do what you've done. And like you said, you haven't got these huge aspirations to have a huge team, and you want to go away with the family. You want to come back and give mortgage advice. So, but to be number one in your area and being the face in your area, that can build a phenomenal business, because the more known you are in your area, the less you have to spend on marketing, which in turn brings down the cost, which means you can give your customers a better service. I just think people need to niche down more into their local area, which is exactly what you're doing. Yes, it's great. You get somebody phoning up about a mortgage in the north of Scotland, fab, it's business, but who's the go-to guy in the area? Oh, it's Thomas Honor.
Yeah.
And that's where you. One thing I was going to ask you, which I've never spoken to you about before, why did you use Thomas Honor instead of Tom Honor?
Good question. To be honest, I've kind of, I don't know about the name. What I think it was a case of, again, a bit of a right. I got to start a business. What's the name? And I come up with all sorts of things like Honor and Son and Tom Honor and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think for me, Thomas Honor was just a bit
It
more
flows
formal.
better. Like,
Yeah, it flows better. And for me, people always say, well, why didn't you go with like a bit more of a, not a personalized name? So I don't know, like ABC Mortgages or whatever it could be. But for me, I was always planning on being on the front of the business because I've, very, very cliche, but I've always been a big believer in people buy from people, and that's the whole social media thing. And whilst I'm not doing as much at the moment because I've got other internal projects that I'm focusing on, I've always done a lot of videos and putting my face out there and stories and that sort of stuff. And so for me to have my name and face out there, people to know who they're dealing with, people to know, like, and trust me rather than a nameless, faceless business was really important. So I guess the fact it flows better, but also because I kind of wanted it to be personal to me and people to know who they're dealing with.
that's what I've always thought. That, like, there's another gentleman that we deal with who's an estate agent, and he could easily be Ashwald, but he calls himself Ashley Wald. To me, that sets him apart. And I think it's more, it's if you're going to be the face of the business. And I think when somebody is starting out a mortgage brokerage, that a lot of people are telling them that they need to come up with a snappy name and a motto and all these kind of things. If your aim is your business to be your face, then why don't you just use your name? Because that's your brand, essentially. That is your personal brand. And your personal brand is you doing videos, giving advice, standing up at first-time buyer events, those type of things. It just strengthens your brand, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, talking about social, we've been working together for the last kind of year now. It's coming up to a year.
Yeah, must be. Yeah.
Media post, and we'll post to your social channels for you. The great thing is you have got a really strong brand, haven't you? Everybody knows that you're that royal blue and the white, aren't you?
Yep.
People see that. What platforms are your favorite for shouting about your business at the minute?
I think for me, Facebook, probably because I've had the most success off the back of that. On a personal level, quite like Instagram and the other platforms, but for me, I've had the success from, I've probably just known a bit more about it in terms of the insights and how the platform works. So, naturally, I think you gravitate towards what you know and what's proven well for you. So yeah, I like that because you've got the community element in terms of local groups that you can share in. So yeah, I would say Facebook stands out as my preferred one.
So with Facebook groups, can you talk people through what you do with Facebook groups to somebody that had never used them before? What would you say?
Yeah. So I think I kind of did this right from the early days, and a lot of brokers that I deal with are doing this. But I think I was sort of right at the beginning was one of the first to put it out. Then it worked really, really well. So essentially, I share a lot of my business content into those groups.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be quite careful because some groups don't like you to advertise, or they only limit you to one post a month or one post a week. But essentially, pushing my content out into those groups. So I would be recording a video on 5 top tips for a self-employed person who's a first-time buyer.
Right.
Record the video, goes on my business Facebook page. I'd also share that to my personal page, and then push that into one of the local Brackley community groups. And then people that's going to pop up on their timeline. Not everyone's, but you're going to get. Some of the videos that I was doing during COVID, I was doing some lives, and they were getting 1,700 views, because I was sharing them into the actual video itself. We were getting 40 people watching it live, which was still pretty good. But then it was them being over the course of a week, they would be shared and reshared and rewatched in these different groups that I was sharing it into. Like I say, easily getting up to sort of 15 to 1,700 views per video.
It's interesting you just spoke about that, because you get 1,700 views, because what happens with the Facebook Live, if anybody's wondering about them, you record them, you might get 40 people watching it then, but it will save it on your page. Then it gets 1,700 people watch it over a series of time. What was interesting then is we spoke about a live event a minute ago about how 60 people were there listening to you. And we said that is absolutely fantastic. Yet when you spoke about your Facebook Live, then you went, well, only 40 people watched it. That was 40 people. And I think because they're faceless, we kind of disassociate success with 40 views.
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
40 people sat there and listened to what you say. This is the thing with social media. We think in such big figures. We look at Kim Kardashian, that's millions of followers, and Kanye West and all that, and we want to be them.
Yeah.
But you had 40 people watch a video. People need to believe that even if you have 2 or 3 people watch it, you could have such an influence on those 3 people. So please don't worry about the numbers, because exactly like Tom said there, you might only have 40 people, but those 40 people could be very influential on social media.
Yeah, agreed.
Love it. Right. So then Instagram, I want to speak about what you upload, because you upload some personal content, don't you, as well? And it's mainly in your Instagram stories. How do you find that helps from a business perspective?
Yeah, again, going back to the old cliche, and it is cheesy, but people do buy from people, and they don't always want to hear about mortgages because they're pretty boring. They want to know about the person behind it, and if they're gonna know, like, and trust you, then they probably don't always want to hear about a fixed rate mortgage or what LTV you got to put down or the solicitors and that sort of. Of course, they're really interested in that if that's the journey they're on, but people like to be nosy and they like to know about you as the individual and the person. So if you can mix it up with a little bit of personal and some holiday stuff and some kids and that sort of stuff, I think people are gonna be a bit more buy into you as a person a bit more. And obviously, like, going back to my business is all around me. My name's above the door. It's my face on the website, all the rest of it. I think that's important that I bring that personal element along to the socials as well, not just keeping it business.
So when you say, this might be quite trivial to, but when you upload personal content, photos of the family, what do you actually do on your phone to upload that photo? I just want people to understand how it can just be a quick snap.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take long at all. It's just a case of, you've got your photo in your camera roll. You're literally going onto your Instagram platform and posting it on there. It takes less than 2 minutes. The longest bit's probably thinking of what caption you're going to put on if you're that fussed about it. And then from that, with a click of a button, you can cross share that to your Facebook page and the Facebook stories as well. So, you could probably upload a family photo with a 1-line caption in less than a minute if you wanted to. And going back to if you look, you can easily see how many people then watch that story or view that story. 1 minute's work and you've got maybe 100 people looking at it. That's, again, it's a pretty big return, or a good bit of exposure, if you like, for fairly minimal effort.
And what happens then is, for people listening, if Tom uploaded a personal post and I interacted with that personal post. So, for example, Tom uploaded this beautiful photo of where they were out for a wedding, beautiful pool with the sun shining. And all I did was send him a message saying that looks amazing. And what happens is Instagram then looks at that and says, oh, Chris has interacted with Tom's content. So when Tom next puts a post out, which could be about business, let's put it in front of Chris because he interacted with Tom's last piece of content. Now, Instagram can't determine the difference between the personal piece of content and the business content. So to them, it's just another post. It's much more likely for me to see Tom's next post about a first-time buyer event because I've interacted with his photo of his swimming pool. So that's why I always try and encourage people to, when we post about business for you, but you can post the personal stuff in between. So there's a mix, but it also does help your algorithms as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Posting on, make sure you put personal content out there. Right then, so we've covered a bit about you, the events, and social media. The way I like to finish every podcast now is to ask you the strategy question. So we're going to pretend that you've moved to the north of Scotland. You've got a laptop, a mobile phone, and an internet connection. What would you do to start generating new mortgage business, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that I was in a not too unfamiliar circumstances myself. So, I haven't, where I live in Brackley, I didn't grow up here. So I've only lived here 5 or 6 years and started the business 3 years ago. So it's a relatively new town. I don't know loads of people. And then I've started a brand new business. Okay, it's not the north of Scotland, quite as remote, but it's not too far off your scenario. So, I would just do exactly what I did when I started this business, which is to create content. My chosen method was video. I used to do lots of really cringy videos. Looking back, I can barely even watch them. They were that bad. Not that the more recent ones are that much better, but they are better. And just create content. I was focused on doing at least 1 video a week. And then I would share that to my business page, but then my personal page, because as you know, personal page tends to get more engagement on it. And then I would share that into the local group. So I would be essentially joining any local group of the remote Scottish town that I could, and then sharing in my videos and my content into that group as regularly as the admins would allow. And then just cross-sharing it across, into my personal stuff as well.
And how long would you say before you had enough authority to do like an event like you did? How long do you think that takes?
Yeah, I think it takes a little while. So, we didn't pay for any advertising for that event. So we didn't put any sort of marketing on or any spend behind it. It was all sort of organic reach. So, I think it's tricky to say how successful that would have been in terms of ticket sales had we done it 6 months into business. But I think it's, we could probably say it may not have been quite as successful. So, I think you start to get the engagement and the traction within, 6 weeks to 3 months, I would say. We were 2 years in once we did that event. So like I say, I don't know what impact that had on it. But I would imagine, given that I'd been pushing out content and I'd been, kind of building my name as the local broker, definitely would have had some clout towards those ticket sales, I would say.
I'm glad you talked about that. Those 3 months, it takes you 3 months to build authority online, but you can't just post. I always talk about not posting and running. 3 months is uploading a video every week, 3 posts every week, sharing them into groups every day. It's not just a case of uploading to social, is it? It's what you do. You're talking about, I'm creating this content, I'm creating a video, I'm creating a post. The most important part then is what you do with it, isn't it? You need 3 months of sharing it out there and getting it out there, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And, but the more you do it, the better you become at it. I mean, when I did my first videos, I would spend an hour and a half maybe to record a 2-minute video because it'd be so awful and I'd mess up so much. And I thought I had to do the whole video in one take rather than actually thinking I'd slice it up and, jam it all together like we do now. And then I would edit it and add in subtitles and put the banners on. It could probably spend me a whole day to do a 2-minute video. And then, just learning how, I mean, it seems fairly simple now, but at the time when you've never done it before, learning how to post it in those groups with another, and the video's obviously got its own caption on it, but then with your own caption, and then to go in and interact with the people that have perhaps liked it or commented on it, that's important to go back and engage with those people. And you have to say one video is a splash in the ocean. It's not going to do anything. You need to be doing it once a week for probably, say, at least 3 months before you'll even notice anything, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard graft. It isn't just a case of, I'll just do this and all of a sudden we're going to get loads of business. It takes time. And now, like I say, I've not been doing video as much in the last sort of 6 to 9 months because I've got some internal stuff we're focusing on in terms of, we've got a new trainee, but once he's up and running, that's definitely something. It's my first thing on my list to get back to. I can probably knock up a video, edit it, get it online in an hour and a half or something like that, rather than a whole day. But it takes time. And, I think the important thing is just to start doing it, just start doing it, get perfect later on.
It's like you say, putting up one video and expecting business to come in is like putting a flyer up at the local hall and expecting loads of phone calls. Yeah, if you flyered every board in the local area for 3 months, slowly but surely, you'd see it come back, wouldn't you?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's all about consistency. Mate, that was awesome. I'm sure there's loads that people can pick up from that. If it was me, I always talk about rewinding a podcast and going back to certain sections. I go back to and listen to what you did for that event because I think that's phenomenal to give out 85 tickets and have 60 people turn up, and those relationships that you've built. And how many leads do you reckon you've got that from that event that was done 6 months ago?
I would say bear in mind that they're on different parts of their journey. So some people were turning up and they probably didn't even know what mortgage was. Others have perhaps done a few viewings before. So I would say probably we've had maybe 6 full mortgage applications.
Right.
Now you bear in mind that with those, you're going to get a broker fee, you're going to get a procuration fee. You're going to tend to get some protection on the back of that. It's covered our costs and quite a bit more. So really, all we've done is just pay for our, just our time that we've invested, and it's been well worth it. So, and that's just from those. So it doesn't seem like loads, but if you look at monetary wise, it's more than covered. The other exposure, the marketing, and probably the other 55 people that attended that haven't got in touch yet, half of them might go elsewhere. That's fine. The other half are going to come to us at some point. There's no doubt. They're just too early on their journey. They're not all going to. We had no doubt that they were all going to. We know they weren't all going to come in within the first month and go, "Give me a mortgage, give me a mortgage." It's a long-term thing, but we're here for the long term. We're not trying to take over the world overnight. We're building long-term relationships. They'll come to us when the time's right, because I think what the event has done is cemented those relationships, and I think when the time's right, like I said, they'll come along. But I would say just in then probably 5 to 6 applications that are actually going through, and we've received some money off the back of.
And the thing is, you don't know that. Say if you had a John Smith that was there, and the day after he was having dinner with his mum and dad, and they're like, "Oh, what did you do last night?" "Oh, I went to a first-time buyer event." "Who was that?" "Well, Thomas Honor, his mortgage broker." "Oh, we need to sort out mortgage. We'll call him." Now, that might not be a direct lead from that event, but by them simply mentioning your name, one, you're getting your personal brand in their face. They know who you are. They know who your business is. But two, they might be in the market for a mortgage. So you might have had some leads off the back of that they wouldn't have mentioned that you came from the event, but still you got business from it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's impossible to track everything that's come off the back of it. But to be honest, when I walked away from it, I said to myself, if we didn't get one single application on the back of it, I would be happy enough. Don't get me wrong, getting the application in the business is great. It's a cherry on top. But if we didn't receive one mortgage application, I would have been happy, because it didn't cost me the earth to put on, but the exposure and the marketing was great, and actually giving back to 50 people, it'd be a bit of a tough one if they went off to another mortgage advisor after you've given them all the initial advice and got them on the way. But that's just what happens. I think it swings and roundabouts. But just to give out that free advice, give back to the community, help people, along with the marketing and exposure that we got off the back of it. If I got nothing of it, I'd have still been really happy. And the fact that we've got the business we've got already, and probably some more to come, has just been brilliant, really.
Good thing to do, isn't it? Anyway, thank you so much for going on the podcast, mate. It's been a pleasure. I know we've had this booked in for quite a while because we had to cancel one of them. But as a little thank you to say thank you for coming on, we'll donate £10 to a charity of your choice. Which charity did you want to make the donation to?
I'd love if you could donate to Mind, the mental health charity.
Yep, no problem. Popular one on this podcast. Perfect. Well, Tom, thank you so much for coming on. Really do appreciate it. And anybody, I'm sure your inbox is always open. If anybody wants to chat about the event or anything about him launching his business, if you think about doing it on your own, have a chat with Tom. Lovely bloke. I'm sure he'll guide you in the right direction.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me, mate.
Cheers.